and he rested in the 7th day. That's why he blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. And then in Exodus chapter 31, it says like this. And God said to Moses, please speak to the nation of Israel to say, observe my Sabbath, because it's a sign between me and you for generations, to know that I am your God who sanctify you. Observe the Sabbath, it's holy. And here comes the most critical thing about it. Mechaleleha mot yumat. Those who violate the rules of the Sabbath should be put to death, and not only in this life, as it mentioned twice, mot yumat, death for this physical life, and God forbid, death for the next life. And that's when the Torah says, "V'nichreta nefesh ha'i mikerev hamea." I am God is going to cut this Jewish soul, God forbid, for my nation for eternity. And this is the worst punishment that is mentioned in any way in the entire Torah. No other sins have worse punishment than this. There are some other sins that are subject to the same punishment, but unfortunately this is the worst punishment in the entire divine Torah of Hashem Yitbarach, of God. And many Jews are not aware of it. I find in my lectures that when I read it to people, they are shocked. Some of them never heard it once in their life. Most people, unfortunately, are not even aware of the fact that this life is only a hallway to the real life, the life of eternity. They don't understand that eventually when a person dies, the real life begins. And the question is, where do you go after your death? Where does your soul is going to? The soul, it looks exactly like the body, without material. If you try to touch it, you obviously don't feel anything. But the soul can see, the soul can hear. When you say I, you mean your soul, not your body. The body is worthless. It doesn't worth even $2 today. If you look at the ingredients of the body, less than $2. But everybody understands the person is intelligent, his spirit, it's all the soul. In case you have a doubt, the Torah says clearly that God created Adam, sent from the ground, and he blew into his nostril a living soul, and only after that he became alive and active. And the reverse transaction is in King Solomon, the book of Kohelet. This is what it says. And the soul returned to the master that gave it, and the body will return to the ground because that's where it came from. So this is death. Also, when Rachel Imenu, when she passed away, the Torah says clearly that her soul came out, and only after she died. People who die clinical death, which what we call today out-of-body experience, according to science, if 6 minutes they are dead and they come back to life, they basically cannot function anymore. Their memory cells are burned in the brain and cannot be functioning ever again. But today we have an exception to the rule, and sometimes the exception to the rule is tremendous. There's millions of people who died. Some of them are more than 6 minutes. They come back to life, and they review exactly what happened when their soul was out of the body. I have a whole lecture about it, Life After Life. It's right in my website if you want, divineinformation.com. You search for Life After Life in Hebrew, in English, and obviously there's a lot of information there that you're probably not aware of. As we continue about Shabbat, God is continuing and say, and the nation of Israel observe the Sabbath to make it an eternal agreement for generations between me and the nation of Israel. Ot ileolam. It's a sign forever that I created heaven and earth in 6 days, and in the 7th I stopped. And right after that, the Torah says, Vayiten el Moshe kechaloto ledaber ito, and God gave Moshe the Torah as he finished speaking to him in Har Sinai, and the 10 Commandments, Luchot HaEven, the boards of stone, written in God's finger. So that's an analogy, obviously, but this is it. So the Torah is mentioning the subject of Shabbat 12 times. No other mitzvah is mentioned so many times in the Torah, besides to love the converts that live their life, their family, and come back to a new environment, and they start everything from zero. So the Torah, Hashem wanted to help them to be able to function in their new environment. So there is 36 times, if I remember correctly, it's mentioned in the Torah, to love them, to respect them, not to be cruel to them, etc., etc. But Shabbat, 12 times. Even you should not kill is not mentioned so many times. And many other important mitzvot. How do we know the importance of Shabbat? There are many ways to know. First, that it's mentioned many, many times in the Shabbat. Second, it's an eternal covenant. That means forever and ever. It will never finish, this agreement between the Jews and God. Third, we look at the punishment. The more severe is the punishment, it indicates how serious is this mitzvah, how important it is to God. If the punishment is very, very minor, then you know the mitzvah is not so critical. If a person violated, he is subject to a very minor punishment. But if God gives him the worst punishment we can even imagine, we don't see anything worse in the entire Torah. It shows that this is the most important thing in the eyes of God. Not only that, as we review some of the restrictions that apply to Jews who does not keep Shabbat, it's horrifying. It's hard to believe. Now I know some people may take it and say it's impossible to digest such a thing. We cannot accept it. We disagree with that, and many other comments. But let's really analyze what have happened to us. We grew up, some of us in Israel, some of us in America, in Russia, in the rest of the world, in a secular environment. We went to public schools. We never learned hardly ever the Torah. And I'm telling you, for years, I asked hundreds of times in the audience, in many different places that I spoke, anybody here read the Torah carefully once in his life? Not 10 times, once in his life. He reviewed every word and he understands the simple meaning of that. We're not talking about the secrets, Kabbalah, none of this. Only the simple understanding of the Torah. The general information, the history, the instructions, etc., etc. And believe it or not, the answer is nobody, no secular Jew, Israeli or from the exile. It doesn't really matter. None of them read the Torah even once in their life. Hard to believe, but it's a fact. Now, allow me to ask you a question. How can it be that people have speeches and comments against the Torah when every one of them admit that he never read the Torah even once in his life? Is it possible to criticize something you don't even have 1% of knowledge about it? How can it be? Where comes the chutzpah, the guts, to criticize something that you don't even know what it is? You see a little bit from the outside, you see some religious people, you hear here and there few words about the Torah, you put it together and you think you have a picture. You have nothing, my friend. Nothing whatsoever. As I said before, ignorance is a very big risk. Very big risk. We have to understand what's going on here. They're giving lectures against the Torah. They never read it once. Once, and we see from experience, once a person begin to learn it, even just few chapters, he is so ashamed from some of the comments he used to make, and obviously we see results. People begin to change. Even if they're not interested to change, they feel that they're okay in their life, they begin to change because they're willing to sacrifice for the truth. Especially when it's mentioned in the Torah clearly, and all of us know God is not a liar. It says that everything here, it's a test, that once you pass the test, you are subject to a huge reward. In case you doubted what is this reward, it's all spiritual, pure reward. When the soul is in the body, a person cannot even understand what this reward is. It's like trying to explain a blind person how the color blue or red looks. It's impossible. He never saw colors. He doesn't know. What are you going to say? It's like the sky. It's like the ocean. He doesn't know what's the sky, what's the ocean. He never saw. So a person cannot understand. But there are few places in the Torah that is mentioned, and it's pretty good for me. It should be just as good for you. What does it say? The righteous Jews are sitting with a special crown to their head.